Mouin, good to have you with us. Just to give us your view on the significance of these deals, because President Trump is calling them peace accords, but actually the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain have had soft relations with Israel for quite some time.
Yeah, I suppose we will no longer be waking up to reports of yet another attack by the Emirati and Bahraini air forces on Tel Aviv. So in that respect, it's significant. But I mean, I would neither understate nor overstate the importance of these agreements. As your correspondent noted, they're not peace agreements, but rather diplomatic agreements. I think the most important consequence of them is that this spells the end of the Arab Peace Initiative, which was a Saudi initiative intended to mollify the United States in the aftermath of the September 2001 attacks. And given that particularly Bahrain could not have entered this agreement without Saudi support, this is effectively, in my view, a Saudi renunciation of its own diplomatic initiative. Whether other countries will follow in the near future, I think is speculative. It may or may not happen. I think another key aspect here is that it's intended to support President Trump personally in the midst of what's proving to be a challenging re-election campaign. And of course, it isolates the Palestinians even further and poses to them once again the challenge of getting their own house in order to meet these increasing pressure upon them, both from Israel, from within the region, and internationally.
You touched there briefly on whether other Arab nations would follow suit. For Israel, of course, the goal is to try and form a regional alliance against Iran, which it sees as an immediate threat. And of course, the Gulf states see Iran as an immediate threat as well. Does this not mean that there is at least some likelihood of other Arab nations, perhaps Oman, perhaps Saudi Arabia, signing up for these normalizing of relations with Israel?
Well, I'm not sure I agree with the premise of your question. I mean, Israel and these Arab Gulf states have had military and security relations for years. And I question the extent to which adding formal diplomatic recognition and the exchange of embassies solidifies that alliance. I question how it adds an anti-Iranian component to what is already there. As far as Oman specifically is concerned, I wouldn't rush to judgment on that because, as you know, Oman has been playing the role of mediator between the United States and Iran and would presumably hope to resume that role, irrespective of who wins the upcoming U.S. presidential elections. And I would think that Muscat would be worried that entering into a formal diplomatic agreement with Israel might threaten the role that it hopes to play. The countries that have been mentioned most often in this respect are Morocco in exchange for a formal U.S. recognition of its annexation of Western Sahara. And, that would seem to be, and Sudan hoping to get off the U.S. terror list. But both Morocco and Sudan have very sizable populations in contrast to Bahrain and the UAE. So I think that's questionable as well. But again, particularly if Trump wins re-election, I wouldn't exclude anything.
Mouin, good to get your analysis there. Thank you very much indeed for your thoughts. Mouin Rabbani there.